how you think they're going?
Very badly. I mean, from anyone's assessment, we've never had a critical climate negotiation where at this point in a week where we have to come to a conclusion by Friday or Saturday, so many of the parties, there's so much fracturing, there's no real gathering consensus around solutions. So it's very discouraging, and there's a real climate of distrust in negotiations that hasn't always been present.
Why do you think there's that climate of distrust?
Well, I think the leaking of that text, thank goodness we found out about it, but the Danish, US, UK text that came out on the second day of negotiations, which clearly showed that the rich industrialized countries were prepared to jettison the principles of Kyoto, has led to a real fracturing. And then I think the real story here is the emergence of the most vulnerable countries in the world, the poorest countries in the world, standing up for themselves. So Africa and low-lying island states saying, we don't think the industrialized world is taking this seriously, we want to see real progress, we want to see real action. And they're able to do that because they know that they have, as Bill McGibbon said, through 350.org, a lot of the most vulnerable countries in the world know that the citizens of these wealthy industrialized countries, that many, many millions of us, understand their situation and support them in helping us ensure the planet can survive. And that means that we save lives all around the world by dropping greenhouse gases soon and radically. And that's not on the table right now at these conferences.
What do you think, are some of the best solutions? We've heard, strong critiques of cap and trade, any kind of cap and trade agreements from the People's Summit, the Climate Summit.
Yeah, I think domestic agreements are different than the international system. I think domestically what we need in Canada is a carbon tax. It's a foundational piece. We need to price carbon, and I think that there's some critiques against pricing carbon that frankly don't make sense to me, because until we price carbon, we're treating the atmosphere as a free dumping ground. And as long as we're in a system in which pricing mechanisms matter, you have to put a price on carbon. So I think we need to have a significant carbon tax accompanied by drops in other taxes to the system, so that the average Canadian and low-income Canadians particularly should be better off the way you structure a carbon tax, not worse off. So but for a global deal, we need to make sure we have restrictions for emissions for industrialized countries, and we need to match that with technology transfer and assistance for adaptation. Personally, I like George Soros' idea of using some of what's essentially strategic reserves of the International Monetary Fund and make it available for developing countries for adaptation. But the solutions exist. I can see the way a deal would go forward, but it depends on President Obama promising more than he currently has offered, and that can inspire China to take on the kind of commitments it needs to make. As Tuvalu has said, it's not enough to just beat up on industrialized countries and get them to reduce emissions. The time's come for China and India to make some form of pledge to stop the rise and growth of their emissions.
How is Canada being perceived at these talks?
Well, we're being perceived as we really are, as an obstacle, as a country that has failed to meet its legally binding obligations under Kyoto. We're seen as the only country here that's actually broken Kyoto, that has a government that's publicly repudiated the legally binding targets we ratified. And the tar sands, of course, are something of a poster child for our neglect of this, for our criminal behavior in terms of breaking the law in the international negotiations. But overall, it's our day-to-day intransigence in negotiations that makes people wonder what happened to the Canada they thought existed as a country that was responsible in the world stage.
So how do you think you'll leave this climate?
Well, I hope I leave happy, but the chances of that are small. I focus on what we need, what the planet needs, and what my grandchildren need, which is a legally binding deal here that's effective to ensure that greenhouse gas levels stop rising at 2015 and no later, and start coming down from there to avoid runaway global warming. So that's going to take a few miracles between now and then. So Canadians, keep up the pressure, keep focused on what we need, and who knows, stranger things have happened than having a deal here against all odds.
Great, thanks for talking.
Thanks, Tor.